Anytime, Shawn.
So this is Introduction to Permaculture. Everybody here should probably be familiar with what permaculture is, but this is going to be kind of an introduction crash course into permaculture and a few other topics as well. So permaculture is basically a set of design principles centered around whole system thinking, and it also is based upon 12 principles that we will be going over shortly. And it deals with primarily regenerative agriculture, rewilding, and sustainable community concepts as well. So 12 principles of permaculture which are used is creatively use and respond to change, and envision possibilities and how to work with those possibilities. Observe and interact with your environment or surroundings, and catch and store energy, which can be water, wind, sunlight, any number of different sources of energy. Obtaining a yield, and that is obtaining a yield from the energy that you store, whether that is in food production or whatever the case may be. And self-regulate and accept feedback. So when you are catching and storing energy and observing and interacting with the landscape, if things are not going exactly as planned, that is feedback. So being able to work with that and be able to improve upon the processes or strategies that you have. And use and value renewables. So that would be primarily with, for example, sunlight or wind energy or anything like that, and thereby reducing dependency on non-renewable energies. Producing no waste is a major part. Everything has a purpose and can be used and recycled into some other format. Design from pattern to detail. So you can think about it on a larger scale or a smaller scale, and basically be thinking in terms of in your design and in your concepts that you're using. You may start with a small little model or one section of the property, but understanding how that one section fits into the whole and design and work accordingly with that. So integrate, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that, but basically making sure that if there is one thing that you are employing, such as chickens or squash, for example, what other plants or animals are required to make sure that it stays healthy, or can be used in conjunction with it to maximize productivity and potential. Use small, slow solutions, so that gets again into the modeling and not going really big right off the bat before you work the kinks out of it. Value diversity, works in with integration on how things will work together in order to provide a more sustainable environment. And using edges and value the marginal. How do transition zones and spaces on your place that may not receive much attention be utilized in order to provide a more dynamic ecosystem. So those are the 12 basic permaculture principles, and along with the values of caring for the earth, everybody getting a fair share, and care for people. These principles and values also relate to societal or people permaculture, which there is a book out there that the name eludes me at the moment, but I believe it is People in Permaculture, where they take these 12 principles and talk about how they apply to sustainable society and social systems. So the goal of permaculture is to create a interconnected spider web where everything has as many points of connection as possible, so that it increases diversity as well as resilience within your system. So some strategies of permaculture include soil regeneration being a major one. The whole world is based upon 6 inches of soil, unless you're into hydroponics or aquaponics.
I made 6 inches of water.
6 inches of water. Polyculture farming is another application where you will integrate both herbs and food plants, edible medicinal plants, as well as fruit trees or nut trees. Water conservation and restoration, applying principles of sustainable aquaculture. Using swales is another strategy for keeping water on the landscape, and there are many, many, many more that are used, but those are really the primary ones. So swales, which I got a model here if you guys want to practice with that. The idea behind it is you will be creating a little ditch right here, and it creates a rivet or a little hill in the landscape where when water comes, runs down the hill, and these are built on the contour of the landscape, meaning wherever the slope is, they are built perpendicular to that. You can plant trees or any type of polyculture on the swale right here, and when the water runs down, it catches in here, and the idea is that it will begin to permeate into the substrate, and the roots of the plants and trees that are planted on the swale will have access to more water, and the groundwater level will begin to rise as a result of it. And I have seen this work really well, especially with gopher poles. It creates almost like an artificial spring when it rains heavy enough. So, in water conservation and restoration, you have the idea of swales and making ponds upon the landscape, thereby increasing the amount of surface water available, whether that is for irrigation purposes, fire suppression, or aquaculture. Up top here is Dr. John Todd's work using gray water and black water for water restoration using plants. And it's very similar in principle to aquaponics. He does produce not only fish, but usable edible plants as well, even out of black water. And by the time it is through the system, it is pure drinking water. So every municipality should have them. They're about a tenth of the cost of a traditional chemical water treatment plant. So water conservation and restoration, really important, especially in today's age. So this is an example of polyculture gardening, where you'll have swales. You may have several different types of trees, and mixed in the trees you'll have, bushes and other herbaceous plants. And of course you'll have what is called a food forest when you do that, or you can have a traditional crop planting garden in between. So there's an example of polyculture and food forest. Soil regeneration techniques. This is what is called a key line plow, and what that does is it will produce mini swales, and you will take that plow on contour and perpendicular to the slope, and parallel to the slope, and you will rip into the ground and fluff the ground, and thereby increase aeration, where water and air can permeate through and begin to help create a more biodiverse topsoil. When that is not an option, you have what is called sheet mulching, and that is where you will begin to layer between straw, organic material, cardboard, grasses, whatever the case may be, and create almost like essentially a sandwich on the top of the soil for it to jumpstart to create topsoil in that area.
Can you take questions, comments, or accusations?
Sure.
Okay, I wanted to point out that keyline plow allows you to grow literally inches of soil every single year, and that it's not uncommon to be able to take your 6 inches of soil, turn them into 18 or 24 inches of soil by using the keyline plow. And it's one of those things, even though I'm on sand, it's one of those things I would really like to be able to experiment with. And there's a similar kind of plow that's available in America that you can get for $200, which is a subsoiler plow, and it does essentially the same thing. And what that does is it just takes it rips your ground and it just lifts it up a little bit and creates a space. And what it does is it allows the roots to travel down into there, and it allows the water to soak in and all that stuff. And now you're building soil along where that plow had been, without disturbing the soil layers and turning it over and causing death. And I wanted to point out that on sheet mulching, what I've discovered is that the best thing I can do to cut down on weeds is to put 2 layers of cardboard down with mulch and compost on top of that. And that is the #1 thing I found to be able to hold down the weeds. The plastic weed block stuff that they have doesn't block weeds. All it does is it creates a hassle of something that you have to go and then later pull out so you can put cardboard down.
The one thing that I will say about sheet mulching is don't do it around any gardening plants because it tends to draw in just about every kind of insect you can think of, which is good because in sheet mulching it needs to be broken down, but if you're trying to plant a garden around it, not a good idea.
It can be challenging.
Yeah. So, biochar. And biochar is used as a soil amendment, and basically what it is it's just charcoal. This could be an example of it, and you can have it in cube format like this.
Is this homemade?
It's homemade.
Woohoo!
And
Homemade
you can, it's similar to activated charcoal, doesn't contain as much oxygen. Depends on burning temperatures, of course. Regular char like that will work just fine from what we've found. And what it is it's carbon, and it provides a honeycomb-like structure for bacteria and all sorts of stuff to be put into the soil, especially any sort of nitrates from sheep manure and things like that. And what we've found is that, similar to how it acts within the body, it will do the same in the soil. It'll take up any sort of heavy metals or anything like that, so it's really good for bioremediation. And mycelium. When we make our inoculation, we will mix mycelium, what is called EM1, which is a Kickstarter, almost a probiotic for the soil. And we've found really amazing results with this stuff, especially with vegetables. It is you can buy that one bottle. It is live bacteria culture, and if you know how to make kombucha, or if you know how to make wine, it's the same principles. You basically keep adding sugar, keep feeding the bacteria, keep it growing, and you can have a constant supply of soil inoculant. And if you do a lot of burning, you mix it in with your charcoal. And if you have raised bed gardens, perfect, because you'll build up the soil very quickly. If you use a keyline plow, you have the ability to throw the charcoal through a corn grinder or something, make it very fine, mix it in with that, put it in a sprayer with some mycelium, and you've got yourself a super inoculant blend, especially with azomite, which is powdered volcanic rock. Now, in order for the plants to be able to uptake azomite, which you can buy in 50-pound sacks, it's highly super mineral rich. In order for the plants to be able to process it, they do need that healthy bacteria in the soil. So if your soil doesn't have that, that EM1 will do the trick. And the charcoal, the biochar, will absorb all of that and provide a very rich, thin layer for plants to begin to use. So biochar has been used for bioremediation, especially in areas that contain asbestos and heavy metals and toxic waste dumps. They've used biochar as a remediation for those areas. So the reason I mentioned that, so biochar MST, as I talked about. And the one thing that biochar does do is it creates a negatively charged environment for seeds and plants. The reason I mentioned all of this, and I'll get into that in just a minute, but if you go into TDLR, Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, you'll see at the very bottom of all the licenses they offer a weather modification license. And like they did during the 1940s, they are still cloud seeding today with silver nitrate. Silver nitrate is considered a heavy metal and is toxic to plants, but one thing that it does do is it sterilizes the soil from any sort of good bacteria that helps plants and seeds germinate. So if your gardens aren't looking too well and the seeds are not growing very well, partly due to positive ionization, but also partly due to the sterilization of the soil from cloud seeding. Biochar will pick up any sort of heavy metals out of the soil. The mycelium and bacteria will be able to process them, and the minerals from the azomite will add to the soil fertility. So that will provide a negatively charged environment for seeds and plants. Plants, like us, require negatively charged negative ions in order to be having a healthy immune system for the plants as well as us, and for the seeds to be able to germinate. When seeds are coated with positively charged ions, which happens when they're put in little plastic bags and sold, it coats the seed with positive charge, which seeds need negative charge in order to germinate. That gets into this here. And ionization is the process in which an atom or molecule acquires a negative or positive charge by either gaining or losing electrons. Seeds exposed to negative ions will have higher germination rates as well as grow more healthy. And native groups from all over the world would smudge their seeds to remove the bad mojo from them, I guess you could say. And in physics, that smudge contains negative ions. And since the seeds, will attract negative ions, it will coat the seeds. And as a result, the seeds will grow more drought tolerant, pest tolerant, and healthier. The other thing is, this is the website which you can look this up if you're interested in this research. We posted on the group the Seeds of Knowledge, Stones of Change, I believe is the name of the book, is available on our group Google Drive. Very interesting read that I'd recommend if you're interested in this topic, because the mound builders along the Mississippi, they employ this type of agricultural techniques. Plus the design of the mounds, in addition to the smudging, is very interesting because they're built like a battery, and it would actually draw in lightning, which would also charge the landscape to help the plants grow more healthy and fix the nitrogen in the soil. So it's interesting science there. So the effects of plasma on seeds. So once again, lightning. Studies have shown atmospheric charge also plays a role in seed germination and plant health, and that the lightning is negatively charged to produce healthy plants and promote seed germination. That's why you get lightning storms in the spring. It fixes nitrogen into the soil, which is another thing that is needed for healthy seed germination.
Also, wouldn't it also affect the charge of the particles that are in the rainfall?
Yep.
As well?
And the importance of healthy soil, being able to percolate into the ground instead of running off. And a lot of Native American tribes would use the slash and burn techniques, which creates biochar.
Right.
So technology like these lights produces positive ions through electromagnetic radiation. And these positive ions have an effect on human health, just as they do with plants. And these positively charged particles are known as free radicals, some of which may be heavy metals. And those will be took into the body, and as a result have all sorts of immune-related issues in the human body. In the plant body, the same thing is starts to happen. And if you look out on the landscape and you see all the trees and how you have leaves growing off of trunks instead of off of branches like they normally used to 20 or 30 years ago, that is a result of heavy metal free radicals being taken up by the plants. So this all creates an ecology and a challenge for agriculture, but all of the solutions are already available and they have been for a very long time. It's just being aware of what's going on. So how does this affect permaculture? It's about sustainable ecosystems, being able to grow seeds, seedlings, seed germination, because without plants, you don't really have a garden and you don't have agriculture. And of course from there the roots just tend to spread. So in order to, if you don't want to smudge your seedlings, one of the things you can do is go on eBay, and they cost about $20, and you can get yourself a little negative ionizer. Do not get an ozone generator. Ozone is bad for human health. Create a biochar compost tea, and that thereby creates a field of negatively charged area for things to live in. And understand what lightning storms do, and try to, as much as possible, reduce technology that has those free radicals or positively charged ions, being Wi-Fi. If you have a garden, try to keep it away from, cell phones or smart meters or things like that. So what we covered is basics of permaculture, biochar, ionization and effect on seed growth, and how they all correlate. It's kind of a basic crash course. And of course I could spend probably a whole lecture on just 12 principles of permaculture, but everything else I'm just trying to keep it fairly short and concise. In relation to, back on just a second here. In relation to electromagnetism, we have found through our own research a correlation between the weather modification that Texas is doing and germination in our own garden, but also a number of other things, because it is, from what we have found, being transmitted through satellites, the way that they're doing it through if you take a glass of water, you put it in the microwave, it'll start boiling after 30 seconds. So when you put satellites into space that are microwaving down to Earth, whether it's for transmission from dish TV or Landsats is what they're called, for where cell phones connect into cell phone towers, which connect into Landsats, which connects to the satellites and beams signals all over the Earth. When you start sending that much microwave frequency into the atmosphere, in addition to some other military-grade applications, it begins to superheat the atmosphere. And as a result, there's your global warming. But there has been a significant increase in the rate of cancer, as well as other health-related issues with the improvement and strengthening of technology from, where it was when I first got my cell phone, which was an E, all the way to now, which is now 5G out of Dallas, which is technically 4.5G from what an engineer told me. But these all will play an effect on not only plants but human health, but the degradation of the soils and the microbes, because it will create a more anaerobic system, not only in the soil, but also it will begin to affect the water in a way that is very detrimental. Water will tend to absorb all these frequencies, and the bad bacteria will flourish where the good bacteria won't. So that same thing holds true within our body. It's really a spider web of connection as to how bad this stuff is, in conjunction with heavy metals that have been put into the atmosphere from Fukushima and Russia's new little accident they had.
Oops.
Yeah. These heavy metals will become suspended in the atmosphere, and there is also, if you've got a few Department of Defense papers that talk about the military wanting to control the weather by 2024 and the layering of the atmosphere with particulates for instant communication globally, which those will play an effect because particulates are suspended, they eventually drop. Those play an effect in plant health and soil health as well. So one application of biochar is not enough. It's something that has to be done continuously. And especially with the inoculation of the soil with good bacteria. With that being said, you start including fracking and the effects of fracking in the groundwater. It puts a lot of nasties in your groundwater, so being aware of that and how when you water your garden. So the effects of technology, it's a very deep study that if you start with just this basics, can take you down a pretty deep rabbit hole. So, any questions?
Not really, it's pretty thorough there. And we do have a subsoil if anybody wants to go and play with it.
You have subsoil? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, it's a single point, subsoil, 3-point hitch.
Yep. Perfect. I just want to drag it around my backyard, so to speak, for about every 2 feet.
You can do that.
So put that sucker all the way down there.
Well, this would be perfect because it would start getting it down deeper into that anaerobic area to help when you start fluffing everything up and you add the biochar down in there, it really will create a very potent ecosystem.
So, all right, so I mean, we talked about biochar and creating biochar on our trip into Plano the other day. But what are some of the mechanisms by which to obtain biochar? Right? I mean, can we just literally use lump charcoal, or is there something specifically that one has to do to kind of charge up, activate this charcoal, or what? And
there's a few different methods. The method we use probably doesn't clean the charcoal out of all its constituents, which is, it's been working for us. The plants that have the biochar inoculant around them do a whole lot better because they have a whole lot more nitrogen content that is stored within the charcoal. One of the methods that you can do is the old method that the blacksmiths used to do, and that is if you have 2 barrels, one on top, one on the bottom, like we talked about, and you create a oxygen-deprived area. You have your fire going, you heat it up, it smolders that wood in there pretty much down to empty charcoal. And that way it is more pure and more empty. That's what activated charcoal is.
okay.
So it will be able to uptake more bacteria, more nutrients, whatever the case may be.
And at that point, we can literally take it, dunk it into some compost tea.
Yep.
I suppose what you do first, take it and run it through a crusher of some sort, right?
You can run it
Or
through a
you
crusher.
could. I guess you don't have to.
You can just soak it into compost tea. That's one of the things that we'll do is we'll just get a bucket and we'll make sure that most of the biochar is usually about pea size. We'll crush it up if it's really big stuff and do about pea size. It's about, the largest we'll let it go, and then we'll just throw it in the bucket and let it sit, stir it up once a day for maybe a week or 2, and put it on the plants. And it gets into, we've been experimenting with homeopathic remedies.
Now, are you putting it on top of the soil, or are you putting it into the soil?
We've done both. Just as
Do you see the
experiment.
difference in?
It's more readily available in the topsoil. The one thing you have to be careful about is the attracting bugs. So we usually will mix it in with the soil so that it's. The thing about it is you're going to want to, if you apply it year after year after year, you're going to start creating layers of this biochar.
Right, because you'll put biochar down, and then you'll have a layer of mulch, and then more biochar, layer of mulch, and so forth. And
yeah, it's almost in a way like sheet mulching, because you'll have biochar, mulch, or organic material from composting. So you can mix it in with your compost as well after the compost comes out, because when you get thermolytic, if you have thermolytic compost, it'll kill out a lot of the bacteria in there, so you want to re-inoculate it. So it's basically giving that good bacteria a chance to grow, because if you have bad bacteria that's really strong and you throw in good bacteria, it's going to have a fight if it's first starting. Same with mycelium. There's a lot of fungal mycelium issues in this area with not so benevolent mycelium versus that will help plants versus good mycelium.
how can you tell the difference?
I'm not a mycologist.
Have you come up with a way to rid the undesirable mycelium?
There's, short of soil disturbance and breaking out with the mycelium and then inoculating it with good mycelium, it has to deal with pH of the soil, I know that much, and soil acidity and how anaerobic or aerobic it is.
Okay. We have a situation where a relative has a dog that ate mushrooms out of the yard and got poisoned.
Yeah.
And they would like to remove that fungal base out of there and replace it with something that's not as toxic. Now, I wonder if a solarization would work in that.
A what?
Solarization of the soil.
Yeah, just tilling it up.
To heat it up enough to kill that fungal thing and then re-inoculate with a more favorable.
Yeah, that would probably work pretty well. That's one thing that plowing does, is it disrupts the mycelium layer, and that has a very detrimental effect because it's a symbiotic relationship. So tilling it up and bleaching the soil would work.
Right.
And
So if you want to destroy what's in the soil, you put a rototiller to it.
yeah, that would work. And the other thing is even once you get that good mycelium started, which good mycelium has a really good effect on fire ants, because it will attach to them and use them to spread and grow. Once you get a good base of good mycelium going, it will just take off, but it also has to deal with soil health and soil acidity, I know that much.
I listened to a program the last couple of days about a group that is experimenting with fungal inoculation and using it as a fungal insecticide. And what they're doing is they're taking some fungal growths, they're putting some insects that they do not want it to live, such as squash bugs or something like that, and putting in a jar several hundred squash bugs and some mycelium in there, the fungus, and let them breathe, don't kill them, and see which ones drop dead. And take the ones that drop dead and put them in another container, grind them up, feed that inoculation from that, and then that fungus is targeted with that species in mind, and then they're growing it a couple of generations doing that to where that fungus really wants to eat those, and then they're taking it straight and
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, that sounds like a homeopathic remedy.
exactly.
We've been
The problem is the solution type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's actually something we've been experimenting with. Haven't really gotten too much into it, but we were making homeopathic solutions with biochar mix and seeing what the effects were on the plants. We were working in even with biodynamic principles as to when to plant according to if you want leaves or fruit or roots, and using the inoculant accordingly and building it during that time. So. Yeah, and so far we've actually had pretty good success with the way our seeds were germinating, the plants were growing, because we had transplanted a plant into the greenhouse in August, early August, late July, and it wasn't doing too well. We sprayed it with the inoculant that we had for the leaves, because we made it during the leaf time, we sprayed it with that and it just perked right up, and it's been fine ever since. Transplant into a greenhouse during, heat of the summer. So it might work. We still have more experimenting to do, and yeah, I'd like to try that though. That sounds like a really good idea with what you said.
The group got really excited about squash bugs and try to do it with fire ants. If you could get a fungus that goes out there and goes up and takes the fire ants, you've got $1 million.
Got a $1 billion business right there.
That's right.
That's what we were doing. We were using mycobloom. I didn't bring it with me, but it's a type of mycelium, beneficial mycelium to the soil, and we were just powdering a little bit on it. Took care of most of the fire ant issue. We haven't put it on in about a year or two, but when we first got it, we did, and it was working. So that's another thing that we added into the biochar mix. But yeah, making a homeopathic remedy out of it, that might be a pretty good idea. So, very cool.
We live in exciting times.
I just say one thing. I would not recommend anybody ever go and sterilize their soil like y'all are talking about. So what that does is that just makes the worst things more likely to come back. The best way to do it is to give your soil the health that it needs, the pH and the moisture. Biochar will help it. What makes the healthy horizons within the soil profile are the growing and the breaking down and the regrowing of the roots in there that raises the carbon content. That's what this is. You're giving it a shot. And so if you're going to go in there and till, you want to make it a one-time thing and then leave it. Maybe the best thing to do would be to use a cover crop, lesbides or weeds, some kind of lagoon,
Yeah,
and
that's
then grow that outside of your growing season, and then just mow it down. Don't till it anymore. Just mow it down and plant within. And so that way you're increasing your soil health all the time. The idea of you kill the soil structure every time you plow it.
What we're
Every
talking
time
about
you
is
disturb
is a city backyard. Is what we're talking
it's a
about.
city backyard.
anywhere.
Where the mushrooms were that
Yeah.
poisoned the dog.
The best way to get your good mushrooms is to get your soil into the pH and the fertility that it needs to be, not to destroy it and then try to put everything back.
Yeah.
Because those bad bacteria and things are everywhere. They're endemic. So if you try to destroy your soil to get good stuff, what's going to be there first? What's going to beat you to it?
Yeah. No, you
That's-
can't. Yeah, you could not till
The
it.
best way is to
Yeah, you
just
can't
improve
till
your
it
soil
without
health.
putting 4
Keep-
inches of compost on top
Keep
of it.
stuff on it, growing stuff, so that you're not letting weeds. The best mulch you got is a crop.
Yeah,
Intercropping and that kind of stuff. So lagoons in between when you're growing your plants to keep the light off of it and keep the weeds down. Then just mow that down. Use that as a manure. Leave it there or feed it to ramblers or whatever.
because the main thing, if you're going to till it, would be to break up the bad mycelium network. And after that, you're going to have to, like Steve said, hit the ground running, and like Richard said, you're going to want to make sure that you rebuild it immediately.
Load of compost, and then also spray it with, inoculate it with good mycelium.
Yeah, give it what
Right.
you want, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not a question of destroying it. It's a question of
I'm just looking at trying to replace.
it's remove and replace.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what I'm trying.
Yeah, but you have to replace it because if you don't, something will fill that spot. It's
So
usually
the
not
problem is you
seasonal.
can't ever remove all the bad
Right.
mycelium and everything. That's going to be there. It's in the soil. It's
Right.
endemic. So what you have to do is improve your soil health to promote the good stuff
It's like
Yes.
our
over
immune
the bad
system.
stuff.
It's like our immune system.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So we're going to kill the patient,
Yeah, we're
and
looking
bring
at
it back.
Total body radiation, kill all the cells, then.
That's
then you,
right.
still
That's
get
how we're
fresh.
going to make you healthy.
Yeah.
Is by poisoning you and hoping that the
But then again,
cancer cells are weaker than the healthy cells.
and when we do that, you're not you anymore, you're somebody else.
Yeah, well, it makes perfect sense somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So, any other questions or comments?
Not really.
I don't know. While I was thinking of while we were doing the presentation, I was thinking of two things I want to do. One is I want to have a let's build and plant a swale, and then I want to have a let's build a biochar retort of some sort. Do a couple of different mechanisms to be able to do biochar, and so those are two things that I can see in the between now and the end of the year that I just want to do. I just think it would be fun to do. So let's go and let's build a swale. I don't know, 100 feet long, right? Let's cover it in mulch. Let's plant new fruit trees. I don't know what, October, right? And something like that. So
Be a good idea.
yeah, I do not want to use a shovel, by the way. Just saying.
Could you go over what types of systems you're using to make the biochar? What type of retort device or semi-construction? What I'm thinking of is a steel wall container that you can bolt stuff into and seal up and have a small outlet port to let stuff come out and heat that up. And I'm thinking capture that stuff out and use it as a gasifier for
Exactly.
not wasting what
It's
you
the
got.
it's the exact same thing as a wood gasifier.
And
Yeah.
then you just quit gas and take what's left and use that.
Yep, pretty much, yeah, that's,
Sounds like a winner.
yeah. I mean, if you don't have access to all those materials, and, you're just out in the pasture and you're burning brush pile, just keep it watered. And you don't want it to turn to ash. You can, it'd be good for your garden to collect the ash, but just keep it watered and let it simmer to coals, and there you go.
Right. And once it gets down to that level, you just cover it with soil and you're set.
Exactly.
Right.
And just make sure you burn your rows if you want to, just
You could burn it in place and where you want to like put your new garden, right? Dig a trench, fill it with I don't know whatever wood you want to burn, right? Set it on fire, and when it's about half done, you just cover it up with soil and you're set.
And
You don't have to do anything at that point.
if you have a friend that works at a butchery shop, or people that process
Mhm.
deer during the winter, and they have all those gut piles, start throwing that in there with it. And the important thing is to have good bacteria, because if you don't, it becomes anaerobic and it just rots. So if you have mycelium and good bacteria to be putting in there with it, then you're good to go. That little bottle right there is only about $20, and it's live bacteria, and it will keep propagating as long as it has more food to grow and more space to grow.
What's it need? Sugarish?
What kind of food do you use it for?
I
Cakes?
use sugar. This, I can't remember. I think we just use.
Use the molasses?
No, not molasses. We just use like brown sugar, I think, for that. You can use regular sugar if that's all you got, but it just needs sugar in order to keep growing, growing, growing. So that little deal right here, you're using, they said apply it once per week, 1 ounce for 1 gallon, and this is 32 ounces. So this will give you 32 gallons worth. But if you just take it and put it in a 5-gallon jug, throw the whole thing in there and start your brew and start making it, you can easily put it into a spray machine.
Does it cause filament things that will clog up a sprayer? Some compost tea stuff will form filaments in there,
Yeah.
the fungal streams, the bacterial streams, and clog up your sprayers. Have you observed that with that?
I haven't seen it. When we made ours, I mean, It collected a little bit of sediment at the bottom, but you can just.
You
pour
could
out
run
the
it
top
through a
part.
filter.
Yeah, there's a product called Howard Garrett's Garrett juice.
Right.
And that's a compost tea type product
Yeah.
that has live enzymes and bacteria and stuff like that in it. But if you fill your sprayer up with that and let it sit overnight, it will form a network in there that will clog your sprayer up like that.
So don't let it sit around?
Don't
Yeah,
let it sit
you
there.
gotta use it, and, you know, if you're using biochar or any sort of microbloom, because microbloom granules can be pretty good size, you may not wanna mix that in with it. I mean, with the stuff we use, you know, we'll just walk around, if we grind it up fine enough, we'll just walk around with a traditional little flour water, and that's what we'll use. So that's kind of a cheaper way of doing it without breaking any equipment. So,
Yeah. You might want to make sure you're not using chlorinated water.
yeah, that's the other thing.
Right. Because, so one of the things I've discovered is that chlorinated water tends to kill bacteria for some reason. And it's actually preferable not to use your chlorinated water in like watering your lawn or your garden. So, and the solution to that is just to let it get off gas, which means just let it be available to the atmosphere for a few hours before you put it on. If you put a bubbler in it, it works faster. Because it off gases real nicely.
One of our agendas is to put a swale in from our overflow, from our pond area towards our house area to give more hydration in the area around there. And then plant into that area there as well. And get water closer to our house so we can use that more efficiently.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So what you could use, what I've wanted to do was to use a swale, use another swale, okay, and so you have overflow from swale to swale, and then have a swale that then is basically the water source for a pond, right? And then have the overflow of the pond go into yet another swale. And then to put that pond as high up on the terrain as possible, put the pond high up on the terrain, and then have a pipe in there that I can then pull water, or a pump, I can pull water out of the pond, put it into swales down below. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, your setup is really nice for doing something like that.
It's working out real good. And right now, we currently have a solar pump system out there on the pond that pumps water out up over the hill, the rise between this pond and in the pig area. And we have a 1-inch plastic pipe that the solar pump starts every hour on the hour during sunlight hours, and it runs for 8 minutes right now, and that keeps a constant trickle running down there with the pig area, so they're constantly hydrated. And we could easily divert that to a swale area as well, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've got a post mounted down, put the solar panels up on now. We just have to get the wiring out to where the pumps can actually sit out of the water from there. Right now it's sitting on a dock, but I need to relocate it to an area closer to the spillway. But unfortunately, to do that, I need to get the pond low again. We need a dry spell, which I hate to say.
Well,
that.
congratulations,
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah.
Or you just pump it out.
Well, that'll never pump out with a 1-inch pipe.
Yeah, sure.
Need a bigger pump.
Yeah, and so I can go in and lower the water level or the trench up to where it could be easily reached from the solar area, because it's too shallow, way out too far to get water to that. And while I do that, I'm thinking, why don't I run another trench to the house and use that water then for heat exchange system for air conditioning and what like that.
Yeah, with,
Go to geothermal.
yeah, well, geothermal, it would work well in water. What's your soil? Is it
Sand.
sand?
Right there, I have sandy loam that goes down about 3 feet. And
What's
we'll never
under
have a
that?
real clay.
Yeah, you'd have to bury that thing about 4 feet, and you'd have to run it for a long
Unfortunately, I have a little backhoe, I can do that with.
Yeah,
And I have a farm intern that I pay $20 a day. So she knows how to run the backhoe, so I can
Oh, there's your swell, right?
There you go. That's exactly it.
A backhoe is a terrible thing for a swell because it only digs towards the device.
Right.
What you need is an excavator where you can turn it 90 degrees to the track and run your track parallel to your contour, and then you just scoop that bucket out and
Believe it or not, I used the front loader to build mine, and that was adequate. It wasn't perfect, but you know, in an hour and a half, I built 300 feet of swell.
what size backhoe loader you got?
29 horsepower, John Deere. That thing's 60-inch wide.
I've got a little bitty 24 horse Kubota, but the bucket work. we won't do.
Yeah, no, you know, since I'm in sand, right? I mean, I can put that thing and I can just push forward on it, and it'll just slide into.
Mine's
The same.
not quite that easy. I wish it was.
Uh,
I really don't wish it was. I'm glad it's what
I
it
wish
is.
I had a 50 horsepower tractor. You don't happen to know where we could get a what is it? A double. What's it called? It's a double something plow. Where it basically builds a big divot, throws the soil.
Turning plow?
Yeah, similar. And
A double bottom turning plow?
double bottom plow. Thank you. So double bottom turning plow, and you can use one of those to build a swell. And all you're doing there is just pulling it on the tractor. Now you're not going to be able to do it with 24 horsepower.
No, I also
But-
have a, fortunately I do have a Ford 3000 that I just had my neighbor rebuild for me. And it doesn't have the other implements on the tractor as such, no loaders
Yeah.
like that. But I do have a box blade, I have brush off, stuff like that. And I think I have access to a double bottom turning plow.
That's your
I'll
solution.
investigate this with
That is your solution.
My dad has a lot of implements over in his place, and they're still sitting out in his pasture.
Right.
And so I'll talk to my stepmom and see if I can go investigate
Right.
what's out there.
Now the other thing too is I don't think you need to have. I mean, it's great to have a 3 foot deep swale, and that sort of thing. I think honestly 6 inches does the trick, right? I mean,
It all
anything.
depends on your situation, or
Exactly.
something like that.
We were making, in our orchard, when I first learned about swells, I was making micro swells on contour.
Probably
That
just
ran-
3 or 4 inches deep, maybe.
Yeah, about that wide and about that deep, that ran between all the trees. Because all the trees were kind of planted downhill, so when it overflowed in one tree, it went to the next and the next when the rains came in. So you can do micro swells.
Right. You can do that with a shovel or a hoe.
Yeah, it took me about a day.
Right.
I know I have access to a single bottom, I'm positive, but I think there's a double bottom.
You know, a single bottom, you just end up with a smaller swale. That's okay. Right?
Or if you get a ditch.
I also have a single blade that you can put on the back of the tractor, and it can go anywhere from almost parallel with it, it'll hit the tire there, but you can go at like maybe 30 degrees off the track, and you can get one in down if you want to, and it will scoop under and throw up,
Oh, that's
and it
perfect.
can throw 4 feet
Yeah.
easily. At that angle, it's a 6 foot wide blade, so you can do flat grade or you can
Wow.
spin it
Yeah.
at an angle and do that.
That would do the trick.
So that's another tool we sort of put down there. Hey, anybody wants to go practice, come over. I'll let you practice all you want, and I will charge you a very small admission fee.
Maybe we have a field day over there.
That's right.
Yeah, you can be interns too.
Harry, that you mentioning a double bottom turning plow reminds me back in the day when I was a boy and we were farming around here with mules and horses. We had a lot of plows and they were turning plows. We also had a tool called a middle buster, which I'm wondering, is that the same thing?
No, a middle buster has two arms that throw sideways.
Yeah.
A single bottom plow.
I don't think I've ever
throws
seen
to
a
one side.
double
It throws
bottom
it to one
turning
side.
plow.
It has two blades that throw. This one rolls this way, and this one falls behind it and rolls.
Oh,
further.
one's behind the other?
Yeah,
I
they're
see.
staggered.
Yeah.
And it just makes a deeper, wider swath.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a middle buster is just.
I know
big
a middle
furrow.
buster. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And-
I had no idea what, because I don't remember us
Yeah.
ever
The
using a double
subsoil
bottom
is like,
turning plow.
same thing as a middle buster. If you took the plow share off of it and you had nothing but that
Yeah.
arm going there,
Right.
you just put a small plate
Yeah,
on it.
I knew it wasn't exactly the same
Yeah,
thing,
yeah.
but I wondered if that might be what you were talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. I never did deal with mules on that, but I've been on the tractor with that.
Goodness. No, my dad and I had a nice chat one time. I think it was about 19 years ago. And I asked him when he decided he didn't want to be a farmer. And he said, when I was 13. I said, well, what happened? He said, well, my dad took me out to this field. It was about 10 acres, and he gave me the mule and a plow. And he said, I want you to plow this. The rows need to be really straight. Okay? And he said, I got about halfway finished with that field, and I had decided that I was not going to be a farmer. And so he finished plowing that field. His father came over later that evening to see how he was doing. Said, well, I guess you get to do it again tomorrow, don't you? Right? And so, yeah, no, that's, yeah, yeah.
I have a similar story to that. When I was 7 years old, we had been living in Longview. And my parents decided, me and I have 2 younger sisters, decided we need to move to the country to give a feeling for the circle of life, death, appreciation for nature and all this kind of stuff, and get out of the city. And so they bought a farm down between Tatum and Beckville, which is a rural area down there. They bought 70 acres. And my dad and my grandfather went into the hay baling business. And my dad worked a shift work job at Texas East Chemical Plant. And so in the summer when we weren't at school, he would take me out to a hayfield. Remember how old I am at that
How old
time.
were you?
I was in the 2nd grade.
Second grade. Okay.
2nd, 3rd, 4th. We did that for several years there. And he would take me out to the hayfield, start me on the tractor, and the first day you'd go out with a sickle and cut it down. Next day you let it dry, and then you have to rake it, and then you have to go out back and bale it. And he would drop me off out there, and then he would go do his shift work and come back after shift work and do it. And during the day, if something broke, I had 2 options. Work on it, try to fix it, or sit there in the shade till he showed back up in the evening to do it. So I got an appreciation for trying to do that. I also got many lessons taught me about bumblebees and their nests on the ground. That's a different story. But and his intention was there to teach me the value of hard labor, because I got a share of what the outcome was, because that money went to buy a cow that stayed on our farm that we later traded in life for a pond, because the guy had a bulldozer and went to trade the cow that he dug a pond for us. So that was my share. I got the pond. Couldn't take it with me, but there it was. It was Lee's pond. But if something broke on that, either I could fix or do that. And so I learned that, but part of his intention was to teach me that manual labor will take a hard toll on your body. And he wanted to encourage me to use my brain instead of my back and work in air conditioning. It worked. But here I am back on the farm again.
There we go. Circle of life.
Yeah, it is. And I love it.
Anything else?
I'm all done.
Do we call this meeting to an end? Do I have a second? I guess that was a second.
Second.
So moved.
Got anything else, Steve?
Nope. Okay. Good job.
Well,
Before we
thank you
get your
guys
last name,
for showing up today.
what was that last name?
This has been good. I wish we had a better turnout, but it is what it is.
Maybe next time.
Well, y'all normally have.
We rotate through.
This is meeting number 3.
Yep.
We
So
started at
what's
his
your,
place,
what
then we
is,
went to my
what is
place,
your
and
turnout been at the,
First
what
one
is your
was
turnout been at other meetings?
14.
14, 18, and
Wow.
6, 5. Yeah, I think
Why
it's,
the
you
big
know,
drop?
because
It's me.
Shawn,
yeah.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
Well, no, and honestly, it's a long ways too. Most
Yeah.
of the people
Are
are
around you.
more south.
Yeah, they're near Tyler. They're mini old Tyler.
There's been a lot of people signed up for the group, and we have people from Texarkana area, DeKalb, northwest of here. There's quite a few people. Join the membership.
Ran out. Go ahead, now start over.
To provide
No,
learn-
back up, say our mission statement.
Our mission statement here at East Texas Permaculture Group is to provide learning and experience of the 12 principles of permaculture towards the goal of sustainable future in the application of food, nature, landscape, and people. And
Okay,
that's it.
period.
Simple.
All right. I know you've already, I didn't have my camera on. Give me a thumbnail version, just a few shorter version of your operation. You start off with, I'm the East Texas Lettuce King.
Right, so I'm the lettuce king of East Texas, and I have a 6,600 square foot greenhouse. We plant 2,500 seeds of lettuce every week, give or take, and then we sell to consumers, to farm stores, to grocery stores and restaurants, from Winsboro to Tyler to Dallas, all the way to Louisville. And what we do is we do this by growing our product aquaponically, which is where we feed the fish fertilize the plants filter the water, and it goes back to the fish. We are very water efficient, very nutrient efficient, and we have a system where we promote biology as the mechanism by which nature works, and that's how we grow. It's almost like it was designed to work this way. So let's see. So one of the things we don't use any toxic chemicals, we don't use any pesticides, we don't use any herbicides, and what we end up growing is more nutrient dense, and I might add more flavorful than you can get with something that is grown in a standard soil, conventional soil agriculture,
Or hydroponics.
or even hydroponics. And the reason is that we're using, is that we've got lots of bacteria and fungi in the water that exist, and they form a symbiotic relationship with the plants that are growing there. And they provide nutrients and I don't know what else, right? That that the plants can utilize that they can't normally get in just a standard NPK fertilized field, right? Much less growing basically in Miracle-Gro in water, where my hydroponic friends, whenever they have something living in their water, they're doing their best to kill it outside of the plants, right? They want nothing but fertilizer and plants in their water. If they start having some bacteria or some fungal growth or some mold, now they're struggling. I've had friends who've had to completely wipe everything out, bleach it, and start over from scratch because they had mold problems, they couldn't get rid of it. And so we don't have that problem because what we have is a system where life is in competition, and we promote a positive environment where the good stuff grows and the bad stuff loses, and this creates an awesome product. And here locally, the product's available at the Winsboro Online Farmers Market, and then also at the Walder Way Dairy, just north of Mineola. And on top of that, we also do duck eggs.
Identify yourself and your name of your business.
My name is Richard Hastings, and I'm the proprietor of East Texas Aquaponics. And you can go to easttexasaquaponics.com. We're about to roll out an online farm store where you can go and select what you want to purchase, and then we can either have a drop-off, or you can come and pick it up at the farm. So those are the things that we have available to us now.
You told me earlier that you're using the same water that you started with, or something like that. Where did that water come from?
The tap. So it's basically the exact same water that is the drinking water in our house. It's a well water. It's a little well co-op, right? And so I think there's about 40 customers for this one co-op that work off of this one well. And we add about 500 to 1,000 gallons of water to our system every week, which is approximately 4 or 5% of the water gets replaced every week. And pretty much all of that is a result of evaporation and transpiration from the plants.
And looking at your card, tell me why I don't see the word organic on it.
Because we're not certified organic. Certification of organic, understand that the USDA controls that word. When we started this, you couldn't actually certify aquaponics organically because it just wasn't possible. There wasn't a classification for it with the USDA. Since that point, we are certified naturally grown, which is a more stringent standard than being certified organic, but we don't particularly care to be certified by the government. It's a private certification that is much less paperwork and honestly is much more honest about things, right? So we are certified naturally grown, and we don't have anything toxic on any of our food. And whereas there are now hydroponic growers that are being certified organic, and that doesn't make sense to me at all.
I see. Thank you, Richard. Now,
You're welcome.
Let's go now to Harry. Would you run through the same about yourself?
Okay, my name is Harry Albright. My main profession is a consulting pharmacist, which means I sell and rent information to people concerning medications and proper medication use. I do not dispense medications, I dispense information and knowledge. That gives me free time to run my farm. My farm is called Hogeye Farm. It's located on the west side of Kilgore, and we raise Texas red wattle hogs and Texas red wattle and Hampshire crosses. And we raise them for meat. We sell wholes and half hogs. We'll sell piglets to people that want to buy piglets. We have registered breeds that we can sell registered hogs if somebody wants registered red wattles. And we also have home chickens we raise for eggs, and we just enjoy the farm. That's what we do.
Okay. And the name of your business is what?
Hogeye Farm. Hogeye.
Do you have a website or?
We have a website, but it's relatively new and there's not much on it. It's just simply a placeholder at the moment.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to contact you for business
There's
purposes.
information on the website as far as contact. You can just look up Hogeye Farm. You'll have my contact
Okay.
information right there.
You want to spell that?
Hogeye, like a hog's eye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That, by the way, is the old name of the town of Liberty City. They're on I-20. It was first called Hogeye, and it was renamed around 1910.
Liberty City, Texas?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was originally called Hogeye.
I didn't know that. Thank you. Steve, do you have a business or a consulting deal?
I'm just retired.
Okay. And you want to give us some indication of why you're participating in this organization?
Well, I'm retired from U.S. Fish and Wildlife as a fish and wildlife biologist, and my education is in this field, in a similar field, and I'm interested, so I participate.
Are you available for consultation for people who are maybe wanting to get into this kind of a business?
I don't officially do business as a consultant anymore, but I guess I would be available for answering questions for anybody that had questions about it.
As it is, you're in it mainly because it fulfills a lifelong interest. And,
Yeah, an interest, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you, Steve Silcox. Shawn, do you want to be involved in this kind of interview?
Well, you guys know me.
Well, do you want to be on the
On the panel.
on the film? You know.
I don't mind.
Okay. Well, just run through the same kind of deal that Harry and Richard did.
So, my wife and I run a consulting business. Haven't done anything really lately, mostly in green energy, solar installation, sustainability, permaculture stuff. Mostly lectures and presentations is what we mostly do, and just information.
Okay. Do you want to throw yourself out as a contact for
Yeah.
people who are interested in this?
If there's anybody having any questions or any interest, I'd be happy to help.
How should they contact you?
Best way to contact me is
You have a website of any kind?
Yep, it's worldnativestudies.org.
Okay, I think we better start over. You get that again on the
It's
name of.
World Native Studies, WORLD, Native, NATIVESTUDIES.org.
Okay. All right. And right now, do y'all have officers of this organization? It sounded like
We made
Richard was acting as president a while ago with taking
No,
motions.
that's just me.
Okay. So you don't have officers or anything?
We just have ones we can blame.
Yeah.
It's Sean's fault.
We have scapegoats, we don't have
His
an
fault.
officer.
Okay.
He takes care of communications with the email group and Facebook, and Harry takes care of MeWe. I just kind of float.
Okay. Well, I'm fascinated with the program and the organization itself. So I appreciate being allowed to be here and film it. I'll send out information when I get it processed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, we appreciate this.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, you've been in agriculture all your life, right?
Yeah.
And you know, you probably aren't really familiar with even the term permaculture.
You know, when Shawn gave it to me, I said, "What is that?"
Yeah, exactly.
It's not an uncommon reaction.
Right. I mean, I talked to someone.
You know, if I were still with Farm Journal, it's like I said to you. You know, if I were still with Farm Journal, I'd want to do a story on the lettuce king. And I thought the same thing about permaculture. That sounds like something that would be a good story idea.
It is.
It is a good story idea. Now, you know, I talked to someone today who is exactly right up the alley of who we're looking for to help promote the idea of permaculture. She has 20 acres that she's moving on to sometime this year, she thinks. And it's nicely laid out, and she wants to do permaculture type things, but she doesn't really know even the term, much less the different techniques and ideas and principles behind permaculture, right? And so I just said, here's what I'm going to do, Alice. I'm going to send you down a rabbit hole, and when you get finished digging down that rabbit hole, okay, and you want to come up for air and ask some questions, give me a call back, right? And so I just sent her 3 or 4 videos, and I just said, Google the word permaculture, and then go chase down Paul Wheaton, Joel Salatin,
Bill Mollison and
right.
Jeff
Well,
Law.
I forgot Jeff Law.
And send her
And
on
Mark Shepard and some of those guys, right?
Send her on our website because it's got the permaculture manual book
We'll
on
do
there.
that too, right. So they're just right, and this is someone who, she's my age, right? And she's like, here I am, I feel like I need to be more self-sustaining and more food secure in what she's doing. She doesn't like the food that's in the grocery store, and she's wanting to grow her own. And, you know, so she's interested in aquaponics and so forth. And aquaponics is a small, I don't know, there are even people that would say aquaponics is not permaculture, right? The purist, some of the purists would say aquaponics really isn't permaculture. Well, fine. Just, they don't have to join our group. But you know, if you have 20 acres, right, you can create a level of abundance in 20 acres of permaculture where you're literally in danger of falling food, right? Which is one of the terms that Bill Mollison coined, who's the developer or inventor, if you will, of permaculture, the term and all of these these concepts, thank you, is you know, he said, if you do this right, you'll be in danger of falling food. Walking along in your farm and food literally falling on your head. And that's kind of the goal, is to literally take it back to kind of a Garden of Eden type thing. If you look at the curse that's placed upon Adam, to toil in the field, right? Essentially, he's being cursed with agriculture, okay? And what we're looking at is, can we go back a step and make it a situation
The same reason the
where-
Harry felt cursed.
yeah, exactly. You know, but you know, can we take it back to a place where we're harvesting fruit off of a tree, harvesting nuts, you know, off of a tree? You know, it doesn't mean we don't eat plants or annuals, right? But we grow far too few perennials in our agricultural systems. And one of the things we're trying to do is to create a permanent agricultural system, not one that every year you're having to till it and go over that same piece of ground with your tractor 4 or 5 times with all the diesel, and Lord knows the cost of some of the tractors that are out there.
Yeah, I was going to say, getting another crop loan, like some of the big
Right.
commercial
I mean,
farmers,
if you have to go borrow $500,000 just so you can put in your crop,
Yeah.
something's missing.
Just out of curiosity, how many acres do you live on?
I have 50 acres.
And what about you, Harry?
I have 60.
50 and 60? I know how many you live on.
Yeah.
Okay, I really appreciate your willingness to help me get what I think will be a really interesting video, and I may very well want to keep coming to your meetings.
I hope you do.
Consider you a member.
That's
We
right.
already consider you a member.
That's right. You've already asked more questions than anybody else, so.
Well, of course, as a journalist, that's what I've done all my life, is interview people.
What do you guys think of this place? I mean, I know it's not exactly centrally located, but
Well, yeah, I think that's the only downside.
yeah,
It's very nice to see.
got plenty of room if we have more people coming.
Yeah, I think that the only improvement would be to use the overhead instead of the TV.
Yeah, they have a drop down and it's in that cabinet, but for whatever reason,
Well-
computers don't hook up to it too well.
Yeah.
Had before.
Well, we've got for some of our like the music meeting, and we've got a guy who's not a member of the church, but who is a musician who participates here, who serves as our sound man. You know, we don't have anybody in the church who really is real familiar with operating that sound system.
My wife used to be in our church band, and I used to occasionally do the soundboard.
Used to take her work.
I used to do the soundboard
Oh,
and the
well,
AV.
you could very easily become the sound man if we had more meetings, if we needed one
If we
here
need to
for
do
a
more
meeting.
meetings here, yeah. All right, I have got to go. I have things to do.
Yeah, you
Got
guys
to
thanks
put up
for spray.
stuff, so.
I've enjoyed meeting you guys.
Thanks, Harry. Thanks for.
Oh, I was going to ask you about the cross. You asked about the church. Is this have special, you're not. So you are, what is your theological background?
Well, I grew up Methodist, but I would say at this point, I'm a disciple.
You're a seeker,
No, I'm a disciple.
you're a disciple, okay.
Right.
And you have no affiliation with the
I
church?
have a church, but it's
Is it a
non-denominational. It's non-denominational,
Yeah.
right? And it's only because I like this church. It's not that. And but I do have a relatively complete history with Bethany United Methodist Church in Austin, which we were at for 8 years.
Well, let me just say,
Stuff.
most of the stuff on my YouTube channel is church stuff. When I came back here, I became
Yeah.
active in this church again. Pretty soon after that, I became a lay speaker in the Methodist
Do you have an
church.
Emmaus community here?
I took my walk to Emmaus at Lake Sharon in Dallas.
Well, Day Close, brother.
We have, yeah, thank you. We have one, an East Texas Emmaus program that meets at Walk, that meets at Lone Star near Dangerfield. And
You
we've
know,
had-
I'm only one walk away from being able to be an assistant labor director.
I see.
I've only.
And so when
got,
did you take your walk?
2002.
I did mine in 1995.
And I've been on team. I don't know. I've given 2 talks. I've been a table leader, assistant table leader, been outside team, and yeah, I think I last time I